and in color, in living color. Is that the old phrase? I don't even know. But we're here. It's the first ever Connected Design Roundtable, and we're diving into we're diving into the deep end. Talk about the state of the TV market today. So I appreciate if you're watching, if you're here listening live, or streaming this after the fact. We appreciate you taking the time and joining us and showing interest in what we have to talk about, and hopefully we learn a thing or two here today. So before we dive into it, I want to set the table for what today's going to be all about. Joined by I like to surround myself with some really smart and blue suit-wearing individuals. I think we all, these headshots, unintentionally, we're all wearing blue. Chris, that might be like a gray blue, but that's all right. We'll call it blue so we all match here.
I didn't get the memo.
It's all good. Great headshots, gentlemen. But a great cast of characters with us today to dive into this. Hank Alexander, director of Oasys Residential Technology Group, Jeff Cole, owner of Architechne, and Chris Gilray, CEO of Phoenix Marketing Group. We'll give you guys a chance in a little bit to fully introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your respective brands. But the whole point of today, the mission of today, is to understand Connected Design. We recently conducted some quick turn research on the TV market and reached out to our audience of integrators, designers, architects, and wanted to get your sense around the state of TVs today. And there's a lot of confusion, and we'll get into it around the way TVs are marketed and what this channel, what's all involved with it. So we want to help clear some of that up, talk about it, see how integrators are on the front lines handling it, and we've got also some great sort of the connotation isn't great, but middlemen, right? that sit in between the manufacturers and these integrators on the front lines and hear what they have to say as well. So that's kind of what we hope to do. Give you guys a little bit of ammunition as you are on the front lines, or if you're a designer or an architect listening, help you understand this market a little bit better. But before we get to our panel officially, I want to, like I said, dive into some of what we learned in our Connected Design survey on the state of the market. And if there were two big numbers I want to hit with first, it's this. Kind of gets to why this is necessary today. So 76% of the industry professionals that took this survey said that they felt they were extremely knowledgeable or very knowledgeable on the TV space. That's great. I would hope that, if you're in this channel and running a business that, you are selling TVs, TVs. It's kind of funny, though, that still leaves 24% that felt they either were not very or extremely knowledgeable. I think speaks to the fact that, maybe there is some confusion in this market around, all of the different types of displays and TV tech and display tech that's out there. Flip that over. You ask these professionals when they're talking to consumers or potential clients about display technology. Perhaps not surprising that 72% say consumers have limited or no knowledge around TV tech today. I want to point out, too, it's not reflected here, but 0%, said that they felt consumers were very knowledgeable or extremely knowledgeable on TV tech. So it was either somewhat, very limited or no knowledge at all around TV tech, according to our survey. So kind of gets to the point, the marketing and kind of why we're here, right? When asked, do they believe that TV marketing clearly explains the benefits of modern display technology? You can kind of see here, almost a third, 3/4 of it would say that it's not very clear at all, or extremely confusing around how TV tech is marketed to consumers today. So, that's. If you think about it, kind of the industry putting a blame, there's a lot of ways, and directions that fingers could be pointed, if you will. But when it comes to the marketing, they feel like there's a big hand in that lack of clear marketing around, what all of this display technology means. And I think there is no better sort of, testament to that. I did a little research ahead of this call, to see what. How is the TV manufacturers, how are you marketing your technology to the consumer? And you'll find that, it's kind of all over the board, right? So I see some chuckles from the panel. It's not surprising, right? These acronyms, these ways of explaining display technology. There's about 21 of them on here. You can read them for yourselves. You see them all spread out. It's a mixture of, actual display technology that is in the name. And, of course, every manufacturer has their unique spin that they like to put on it. So what makes their, technology the best to them or their potential clients. So there's some marketing lingo in here as well. And then, of course, it's kind of tucked in there at the very bottom is DV LED, which is kind of that new video wall technology that isn't even, a part of the big TV display manufacturers. So, I mean, a whole nother world that we could potentially talk about. But it's clear, right? Can you really blame the integrators for feeling how they do, both about themselves and, their potential clients when you look at sort of this landscape and what's out there and how all over the board it is? One thing I want to point out, we talk about if there's anything to take away from display tech, right? And there's a lot of OLEDs and RGB on here. That kind of the new things we learned about at CES, right? The biggest difference for the design community, if you're looking at this is probably just, a bunch of letters that it's like looking at arithmetic or like trigonometry on the screen here. But really what it boils down to is where you're going to use the TV. And I know Jeff could probably explain this a lot better, and we'll allow him to do that. But it all comes down to that environment, and your OLEDs or those displays are truthfully or should really be used in those dark room settings. No light kind of filtering in, whereas the RGBs, and we'll get into this, but better performing in those sort of living room environments, we'll call it, where there is windows and things like that. So if you had to boil it down, that's kind of, if you want to boil all of these acronyms down, difficult to do, but that's how I would do it for you. So one last data point we want to dive into, and then we'll get to our panel. So in your experience, your consumers will most often choose a TV brand based on. Well, knowing how much confusion that they feel there is, it's perhaps no surprise then that over 40% of our respondents said that their recommendation is the leading influencer when talking to their clients about what TV they ultimately choose for a project or TVs in a particular project. So, followed closely behind, I think, screen size. That's, to me, what I felt would be, coming into this survey, probably the leading influencer if you took out the recommendation of the tech expert on the subject matter. So not surprising, people want bigger screens. They care about that screen size. So no surprise there, I think, to see that be the leading feature, we'll call it, as opposed to that influence of the tech expert. So those are kind of the key findings of our survey on the current state of the TV industry. And appreciate those that participated. And now that gives us a chance to formally welcome our panel of experts to the floor. So, gentlemen, this is a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this, looking forward to getting you guys on the horn and diving into this. I think there's a lot to learn or a lot to be discussed, too, about this space and kind of where it is currently and where it's heading and how this channel's having success. So I'm going to just go clockwise in my view. I'm in the bottom right on my screen, but I'm going to start in the top left, and that's where I see Mr. Hank Alexander. Give you guys a chance to sort of quick intro, 30-second elevator pitch on yourself and your brand. But Hank, you want to tell us a little bit about Oasys?
Yeah, first of all, Rob, thanks for putting this together and the survey results, and really appreciate it because I think it's something that is needed in the industry. So my name is Hank Alexander. I'm director of Oasys Residential Technology Group. We are roughly 300 custom integrators throughout the United States. Been with Nationwide Marketing Group, who owns Oasys, for 10 plus years. And it's been a fun, exciting ride. And part of my job that I love the most is helping integrators succeed in their own terms and helping integrators and brands come together and elevate the whole custom integration space. So great to be here. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining. And one of those integrators is with us, and that's Mr. Cole.
This is true. Well, I gotta tell you, first of all, thanks for having me. But I have to tell you too, you got like the perfect radio voice.
Thank you.
This is not,
that is a compliment. Not the I know, not the face. I didn't shave like Hank today. So
we didn't doll ourselves up like Hank did, but Well,
Oh,
it's
great.
like,
This is dolled up. We're in trouble, guys.
I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, yeah, I'd listen to that guy. So
Thank
no, I
you.
appreciate you having me on. And for us, Architechne is a fast growing, very passionate group of individuals. We've got 7 locations large within a few years, and that's thanks to the people that work with me and for me in the space, and they're some of the best in the industry. And this is going to sound kind of corny too, but even our clients are some of the best in the industry because a lot of the people that are drawn to our company love tech. They want to do the coolest stuff. That doesn't mean that we don't do, inexpensive systems or anything like that, but a lot of our systems are well over the 100K mark and can peak even to the $1 million mark. And so we're very, very thankful to have the clients that we have. And obviously I'm thankful to have the people that help deploy those systems for them. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And last but certainly not, we saved the best for last now. Mr. Gilray, tell us a little bit about yourself and Phoenix Marketing Group. Oh, you're muted. We got the mute bug. All good.
My bad.
Is it a real roundtable if you don't have that happen?
Rookie mistake. But no, thank you as well to mimic what Hank was saying for putting this on. I think it's truly necessary to get this information out to the field, and it is causing a lot of confusion. So hopefully this helps out, and really appreciate what you put together. So I'm Chris Gilray, CEO of Phoenix Marketing Group. We are a national manufacturers representative, and I'm blessed to have 43 wonderful team members across the country that are helping get the message out to all of our wonderful partners and kind of serving as that liaison with the confusion and sorting that out and getting it over to our integrators so they can have even more success.
Awesome.
We're working both with manufacturers and integrators across the country, so we get a unique view of the market. What we're seeing right now is an incredible innovation in display technology, but also a lot of confusion in the category, and helping integrators simplify that for their clients is more important than ever.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too, because one of the things I wanted to also say before diving into sort of our discussion here, numbers and maybe my presentation even a little bit seems sort of like, man, this is a huge problem, and certainly around the marketing speak there is, but when you look at this category and display technology today, I'll take today over even 15 years ago in what we had in TV technology. So it is a widely innovative market. There's some really awesome things that are being launched at CES that we see, and the screen size is bigger is better. Don't get me wrong. I will die on that hill. But there is a lot that is going really well, and I think it's a testament to the innovation and how manufacturers are putting these displays together. But just a conversation to have, right, around how we're going about this. And you see all of those acronyms that are out there. It's a crazy market, and sometimes it's all it takes is a customer walking into a store, looking at 5 of them on the wall and saying, I want that one. And that's kind of how they pick. But, obviously there's better ways to go about it, and there's reasons we have integrators and experts in this space. And, Jeff, you are one of them. So I wanted to kind of, go back to that last slide, right, of, your recommendation is viewed as one of the most impactful influences on the decision-making process for a customer around this space. So, you're on the front lines, you're seeing it every day as you talk to clients about TV tech. Do you feel that confusion? Are you seeing them, be confused about this space and what's all involved with it?
So I think that's a really good question. So of course there's confusion, but where there's confusion and people that have busy lives, which people that spend a lot of money are busy, confusion gets paired up with almost to a point of I don't care anymore. So we put together sometimes $200,000-$300,000 systems where clients are trying to take their TVs from 10 years ago and just put them in the system because they're like, it's just the TV. What's come out in the last 10 years that's really going to improve the picture. And that's not because they're that ill-informed. It's because there are so many things being thrown at them with the advancements not being as huge as they used to be. If you go back in time, we've all been in this industry a little bit. I think most of us have gray hair here. So you go back in time and you go from these giant tube TVs that weighed 350 pounds. Then you had your DLP and rear projections, which Mitsubishi's, oh my gosh, look at how amazing this picture is, how big it is. It was like 51 inches and the thing was massive. And then you get to, the short throw, like LCD projection type things. And then all of a sudden, plasmas come out. And when they first came out, everybody was like, oh my gosh, you see this? We're in the future. And these plasmas are like this thick still. But whatever, they're like 43 inches for $80,000. But people would still talk about them because it was such a leap forward in innovation and change. And then, of course, the prices come down. And as soon as that Pioneer Elite, that 60-inch was $69.99, boom. Those things were going out the door left and right. And, of course, other tech followed. You had LCD. That was almost pioneered by Sharp and Samsung in the beginning, in the early days. So, and then I remember the next couple of things that came out was the 120 hertz, refresh by Sony. And guess what? TVs were flying out the shelves again. Everybody wanted that. So they could be guided by integrators and by TV professionals at Best Buy, Circuit City, and things that back then. But the marketing and that little thing that was special is what initially drove them. And you continue to fast forward, and now we have these billion different acronyms of different tech, but the majority of the clients see flat panel TV, LCD, or OLED. That's really all they know. And so all that stuff that's there, they're asking a ton of questions. But when they're designing a full system, because there hasn't been these huge leap forwards, or at least a gimmick of some sort, the TV tech takes a back seat. And so now they're talking about all the other things that go around it, lighting and shades, control, automation, audio quality, the list, even video processors. I'm sure you guys have all heard of Mad VR. People are spending more money on video processors sometimes than the actual display tech, which is pretty crazy. So I think that brings us to kind of where we're at. And I'll share, I shared the story about the client of using 10-year-old TVs. But I also have a client and also a friend of mine who lives pretty close to me. He went and bought 3 TVs and literally did his own critical analysis for the last 45 days and then returned 2 of them. And actually went through panels because there was some, I would say, manufacturing hiccups from some of the manufacturers because there wasn't consistency from factories in some cases. So I think there was a total of 8 exchanges, at least 150 hours of viewing, 3 different manufacturers, because and by the way, this TV is just to go by his workout thing. It wasn't really a main viewing TV, but he really cared. But I would tell you that he's an outlier, right? He's an outlier in current tech day. So for us, yes, we do the education on the TV technologies, but the bar that stands out the most there is that they basically let us choose for them, because the TV technology, even though there's all this cool stuff coming out, there's not that hook. 8K came out for a second and kind of went away because it didn't really matter, right? And there hasn't been anything else. Right. And I would say on the horizon, and it's almost there, just like the plasma days, are video walls. It's almost there. That tipping point's about to happen because of price point. And I think that's probably going to be, once that price gets comfortable for the majority of the US, I think that's going to be the big takeoff. Yeah.
I want to ask, how, if they're not as they're kind of letting you take the lead, right, as you're mentioning, and if anything, that's a point in favor of, our research here being valid. What, as you're having those conversations, though, what are you trying to find out? Or maybe this is even more for, the designer or the home builder that's listening, to educate them a little bit. As you are having these conversations with them or with the client, how are you having them? What are you trying to learn as you're speccing in or trying to figure out on your side, what TV makes sense?
Yeah, it's the typical stuff, right? What type of room's in it, ambient light, viewing angles, what type of things you're viewing. But the interesting thing, even about that, you take the middle of the road to best version of all those different technologies you saw, even some of the made up ones that are by manufacturers for their special utility that they have or whatever they have. Even if you take a OLED and put it in a super bright room, a lot of the OLEDs are bright enough to still look really, really good. And most people do their viewing at night. Or they drop shades with their automation system, so you have no reflection on the TV anyway, and you're reducing the ambient light. You're dropping the lights and the shades while you're watching the TV. And so it's very interesting. Yes, if you rewind to 5-7 years ago, some of the tech really wasn't as advanced as it is today. And you could even you would never put an LCD in a pitch black room. Where nowadays, There are really good LED LCDs that look just fine in a completely black space, oddly enough. So I think you see this convergence of all this cool stuff, but they're all getting really close to each other. Obviously, there are still the kings of TV that you see the video every year that they do the shootout. It's always the same one that wins, right?
Yep.
And so it has been for a long time, if you will. And so but the convergence of all these technologies and how fast and how good they're getting with them is kind of, again, it's another thing where you got, I would say, confusing marketing. You've got the will to care is diminished a little bit, and then you also have all these technologies that are so advanced at what they're doing in their own right. You have this convergence where there's some similarities, and so when you're a human being making a million decisions a day about kids, life, work, play, whatever it is, some of that information, because it is so confusing, again, it goes in the background. And it's like, well, this TV looks really good, and half the time it's because a manufacturer's got special content on there that's just for their TV, and it blows them away, and I'll take that one. But guess what? They're just as happy, with that TV over the next 7 to 10 years anyway.
Yeah.
I hope that answered what you were asking there.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. It kind of gets to the conversation around less the TV tech itself, and I think that's the early days of kind of relaunching this platform. A lot of the conversations have been around how not to. We actually had a great article from another integrator, submitted to us, Mr. Kyle Steele, talking about not leading with AV, which sounds sort of counterintuitive, right? But that gets to the point exactly like you're talking about. You're learning more about their environment and how they want to use this TV, as opposed to, oh, hey, here's the specs and the refresh rates and all that. You're not talking about that.
Yep.
You're talking about where it's going to go, what it's going to do, how it's going to make your life better, and ultimately, it may come down to cost. Of course, it's going to be a part of the conversation, but at no point really are you leading with the specs and what it does and why it's cool. Even though that's like, to everyone here, what's awesome to us, right? Like that's what we love hearing about is the specs.
Right. Yeah, no,
well,
and by the way, it's not just in the TV category too. We have people that love music. They swear, I love music, but guess what? They buy a pair of speakers that they can't see. Right. Now they still sound fine.
Yeah.
But they're not going to sound like a pair of speakers that are floor standing on the ground with the right equipment. They're not even close, but they don't care.
Right. Well, I want to throw it to Hank and Chris, because, Jeff, I know you two most likely, but you guys get to walk and see this technology as it's being launched at CES every year, and you're kind of hearing it from the manufacturers, well beyond those events too. But just starting with, your level of impressed with how things have progressed over recent years with this technology, without diving too deep into the specs and things like that. What are you guys seeing, and how is the innovation in this space been over the past few years? Hang over, Chris. Feel free.
I'll start it and pass it over to Chris. CES, great show to see all the new tech, and I think that's kind of where some of this was born out of, this conversation. Everybody's showing new things, and there's all kinds of, as your slide showed, a lot of alphabet soup of acronyms that people are throwing around, and I'll kind of echo a little bit of what Jeff had said earlier. There hasn't been great new, we had curved or 3D, or there was all kinds of cool, kind of gimmicky things. And one of the things I like about RGB and the video walls that are coming out is it's the first real technology since OLED 13 years ago. That's something that's exciting that people can get behind and create some interest in TV, as opposed to it just being another flat panel that hangs on a wall and it's just a TV. It gives you something to actually talk about, and I think that's very important in the industry. And I was really glad to see in your slide that price was number 4. That quality of TV and recommendation, that's great for custom integrators, and I'd even take that a step further and say a directed retail sales floor, not a big box store. It gives you an opportunity to talk about technology, gives you an opportunity to talk about size, gives you an opportunity to talk about the environment that the customer has, and they're not just going in and looking at 20 TVs on a wall somewhere and going cheapest, biggest, bingo, put it in the back of my truck, and I'm going home with it, right? In a custom integration or a directed sales floor, it gives you an opportunity to talk about that new technology. So, yeah, it's great to see new things coming along.
Yeah. And it's not even, the shape. You mentioned all those gimmicks, right? Like it's the shape, or you're physically changing the TV. This is actually something that you're talking about RGB in the intro there and what it's done, but it gives you a reason to talk about the actual use case for it. Like that, it's not that you have to put on glasses to watch it. It's not that the viewing, weird viewing angle, like encapsulate you or engulf you into the scene. Like no, this is actually like you could put this somewhere else because this is where it actually works best. For you and in your environment.
Always have to have glasses. Always have to have glasses, Rob. I'm at that
that's,
age. Sorry.
Not glasses that are going to make the picture pop off the screen,
Yeah, I know what you
mean. But, no, I mean, Chris, kind of your reaction, too, to everything. I know Hank kind of set it up there, but any additional thoughts on?
Yeah, thanks, Hank. From a terminology standpoint alone, the category has become incredibly complex. The average consumer or even builders don't even understand the differences between OLED and QLED and mini LED, micro LED. So the manufacturers themselves that we work with absolutely acknowledge that confusion. In fact, a lot of the innovation happening right now is not just about picture quality, it's about simplifying the decision for integrators and their clients. Some of those simplifications you think about are better product segmentation, clearer performance tiers, lifestyle options, larger screen categories. The integrator doesn't necessarily need to know every specification, and most of them won't, right? But they need to clarify around which display performs best in specific environments.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that too, because I think too, it's not kind of display technology, right? But like it again comes down to that use case. We haven't nowhere in here do we talk about picture frame. In these art displays and what they've done. Jeff, I'd kind of throw it back to you. Interest level around those. Again, that's one of those. It's not gimmicky, maybe, but at the same time, like it's more of that design element, right? Like, what are you going to use this for, and how do you want to hide that big black box that's on the wall, right, and do something different with it? What are you seeing, around those displays?
Well, here's what's interesting is that of course, Samsung came out with that, and it was a great move by them. But prior to that display, there were art frame decor options available to clients, but the price points are somewhere between $7,000 and $12,000 on top of the cost of the TV. And clients would always see it, love it, and then you tell them the price and they couldn't justify it. And now you have screens that are all the way down to about $1,500, and they come with a frame, and they can loop all the different digital artwork that you want. And so there was a differentiator for, especially in the household, and I don't want to group all guys in the same bucket, but most guys don't care if there's a bunch of black speakers and a big TV and all that stuff in the house, but the wives and the moms of the world, of the household, do. And so now they get to have a beautiful artwork with the TV off, because most of the time it is off, by the way. And so it's sitting up on the wall, and that was a game changer. So much so that some of the other industry leaders had to make shift their variant of it because the units were so far in the green for Samsung. Yeah. So that I would say this out of all the stuff that we're discussing so far, that is something that is specifically brand loyal and brought up by consumers because it was probably the last real innovation that they cared about.
Yeah. It's fair. And I mean, you're seeing too, not often you get to talk about accessories with the TV. If you're talking about accessories with the TV, it's usually the audio, right? And the speakers and everything else you're going to attach to it. This was like,
frames.
Well, we could swap out frames. Like literally, I think you got brands out there that are building things for these displays that it's almost like jewelry for your TV that you could just attach to it and change the aesthetic of it. Who thought we'd be talking about aesthetic with the TV? Like, that's a thing? Like, we're doing that? Okay. But it is. And I mean, it can blend in. I loved, any of them now, really. Obviously, Samsung, like you mentioned, first and still largest to market with it. But I mean, you got Amazon now. I know they launched it, CES with their own take on it. But I love walking into those booths at shows and seeing. It's kind of like, the where's Waldo of the frame TV, right? They got real art surrounded by all these other frames that are there, and it's like, pick which one's the TV, and you have to figure all that out. But it's cool. It like gives it that art gallery feel, and again, to your point, I think that might be the last real, so I call it a gimmick, but like the true like design innovation in the display space that
it is kind of a gimmick, but I'm a guy that bought 3D too and thought it was the most amazing thing. And I put the glasses on and watched it.
So, do you know where those glasses are?
No, of course not. Not only did I have 3D TVs, I had the 3D projector too, where I got a demonstration I don't know if you guys ever saw the hotel demonstration where you'd come out of the room to the other side of the hotel, and Epson did this, and so you'd see this shark come swimming out. It was so crazy. I was sold on 3D for a bit, and I'm like, man, there's only like 40 pieces of content I can watch. But
did they splash you with water too? Is it like make it 4D? Oh, well, shifting gears a little bit. Hank and Chris, I want to go back to you and ask. We're obviously talking about the kind of set the stage for the use cases for these displays and what Jeff's hearing on the front lines, but. What are you hearing from Chris? You mentioned it that they admit to there being confusion, but as far as cutting through that confusion or making sense of what's going on in the space, what are you hearing from the manufacturers and the message they kind of want you? Whether I hope they're talking to integrators, but as they come to you and look for your help in getting some clarity around this space to your members, your integrators. What's that message been? Chris, I'll throw that to you first.
Yeah, thank you. So, the message we've been sharing with integrators is very simple. And this is after collaborating with our manufacturers and how to go to market there. But to stop leading with the television and start leading with the viewing environment. Ask the right questions that they're not going to get when they walk into a big box retailer and stare at a wall. Where will the TV live? Bright room, living room, dedicated theater, outdoor space. What will they watch most? Sports, movies, streaming, gaming, and then how big should that experience feel? That moves it from price to experience at that point. And this is where the integrator becomes incredibly valuable, and this is what we're trying to help educate them with. That anyone can buy a TV online, but very few people know how to properly select the right display for the environment. These questions will help them educate the customer to where like, wow, so there is a difference in those 25 TVs on the wall in Best Buy.
Gotcha. Hank?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Chris said, and there's not a technology or a size or those types of things that work best everywhere. Obviously outdoor, we've got specific TVs for outdoor, which is great because I remember a day where, and as an integrator, I may have done this once or twice, hung a non-outdoor tube TV outside somewhere. Sorry if I did that to somebody back in the 90s. We have outdoor TVs. We have, what works in a living room environment that has bright light and they're watching TV, a particular way isn't what works in a bedroom or a media room or a bar or, so there's different, finding out where the TV is at, how the client is going to use the TV. And then last, I think really is what's the appropriate size, right? It's not just I want the biggest for the cheapest. It's what's going to work best as far as size goes. And you don't have to have the largest size in the living room if you've got a media room and other environments where there's where the size really starts to come into play. And to Jeff's point, art and frame and those kinds of things have changed the game entirely, and everybody has a version of it now.
Yeah.
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah, please.
There's this probably one of the most critical components of this is the larger you go, if you do try to go with the cheapest TV, the experience gets horrific. So the larger you go, you at least have to go middle of the road because it requires better panels, better video processors. The list goes on. You can hide some of those imperfections on 40s to 50s, 55s even. You don't have to have the best TV in the world unless you're a videophile. But when you go to the 85 and up, the imperfections really show. If you're going with an entry-level TV and you get the screen tearing, you get even the color space is completely different. You start to see these carved out lines in the sky and things. And that's why a lot of those big TVs that get sold that are super inexpensive, whether it's on Amazon or they go to the Best Buy, whatever it is, they get returned because it is so bad it's almost unwatchable in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And a lot of it, truthfully, comes down to education, right? And being, intelligible enough as the integrator or the installer to know that and be able to convey that in layman's terms, we'll call it, to the client or to the home builder. So to the point of education, this is to all of you, not saying call out who's best or worst at it, but like, how is the level of education around the space? Because I feel like to me, it's like if the education was great, which maybe it is, but like there'd be less confusion around all of the marketing around it, right? So what is that? How are you feeling about the opportunity to become educated, and then how manufacturers are offering education to you in the space?
I'll jump out there and say, just because we represent a few of them, is that they're more than ever wanting to get in front of an audience, to be able to share the technology and the differentiality that Jeff was discussing, and that's important because the integrators are so busy that with the amount of technology in a panel, they can get caught in that trap as well of just selling a larger TV. I mean, we're all seeing the shift toward larger TVs across the board, and what used to be considered a big TV 5 years ago is now becoming the standard in many living spaces, right? So I'm seeing manufacturers doing a good job of getting out there and educating, whether it be at a Top Golf event or, at a hotel. They didn't used to do that as much as I'm seeing today, and that's great for all of us.
Speaking of Top Golf, Hank, you want to go next?
Well,
I love them.
They're great events.
Yeah,
we've done a couple of those over here. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the vendor community is starting to get better at educating and showing some of the differences and talking about not goes into and goes out as and some of those kinds of things, but like how to use the technology and where it works well in a home and how to talk to a client about the technology and what maybe separates this from another one or some of those kinds of things. And coming from the group side of it, we've got programs with probably 5 or 6 different people, right? So we see all of the different vendors and we hear how they're all talking about that, and they're all very interested and very in tune to getting in front of integrators and independent retailers and driving that message. And it's not their marketing spin. It's like, how has the technology changed and how do you use it and those kinds of things. So I think we're starting to see that. And I think that also comes full circle back to the fact that we're talking about some different technology. It's not, sorry, Jeff, not 3D, not curved. I fell into the curved thing. I didn't get the 3D, but I fell into the curved camp. But it's not just a gimmick. There's actual new technology. And I think they're all starting to go, hey, we have to drive to some of that new technology, and we not market it, but we have to teach people about that and help them understand what that new technology is. So I think vendors overall are doing a better job lately of getting in front of that and getting that messaging out.
And Jeff, as an integrator, how do you feel the level of availability of education is in this space for you?
It's unlimited, actually. There's not because the manufacturers know if you want to sell mid-tier and beyond, you have to give justification for it, and you have to be really good at doing it. And not only that, the other component of that, which most people don't know, is if people stopped buying the cutting edge technology or even the mid-tier and up, the advancement forward would go to a snail's pace, because that money typically goes back in R&D to stay ahead of the competition. And so if everybody's just buying entry-level slot TVs that nobody cares about, it's literally going to be that way for quite some time. A similar thing happened in the MP3 world for a while. Everybody's listening to compressed garbage. But I think the education is happening to the integrators that care. I think there's even education happening in the big box retailers, which I think everybody would probably agree that the experience in those spaces have come down quite a bit in the last decade or two. which is good for us, and that's perfectly fine. But the other component, which is very strange, and I don't know why it's even allowed, is when people are so all the confusion with these technologies, and then to layer on a whole nother sheet on top of that is the fact that there are manufacturers or items that are claiming that their little stamp that they have is the same as the stamp over here, and they're not. I could take and this is sad to say even, I could take a Blu-ray physical disc on 4K Blu-ray 1080p, and put it up against a 4K stream from any streaming service, even the best two out there, and it still looks better. And so you're like, well, how's that possible? It's 4K, this is 1080p. And that's a whole long conversation that we don't have time for in this particular call, but that just tells you that's just one of many, that these technologies, and so not only is there confusion, then on top of that, you've got things that are mismarketed, that they're allowed to be, and so consumers believe them to be the same. It's 4K, 120 hertz, blah, 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 the whole list of acronyms. That's the same as this one. Why is this one $1,000 more? What a ripoff. And it's just not the case.
Right. Yeah, maybe a terrible analogy, but to me it's like, Coke and Pepsi, and like they've got their, Coke vanilla, Coke orange, whatever you want to call it, and then like you go to that, the last time you've been to a movie theater, I'm hoping all of us here we've been to movie theaters, but they've got those new like the soda machines that have like the buttons you can press, and like more options than I ever realized were available. Ultimately, they call them different things, whether it's Sierra, Mist, or Sprite. It's the same, stuff. Just taste different. You got your taste preferences, but like that's where we're at in terms of like all of the different options that are out there, and what it feels like. And each brand has their own take on it, but really, like, what's it boiled down to?
But I think we can all agree that it's Coke, right?
Well, to me, I'm a Coke guy. Pepsi is too syrupy for me personally.
Pepsi's making a comeback.
It's all right, It's but if I had to, in a bind, I'm going Pepsi. If there was nothing else, truthfully, it's Dr. Pepper. I'm a Dr. Pepper guy. That's where I go. So
I love Dr. Pepper.
But so like to button it up, I don't know if we can. I do want to point out first of all that to the point of education, there is a panel, an in-person panel coming up, similar to ours. But we will have the manufacturers that are talking on it at CEDIA. Connected Design has nothing to do with this, so this is a plug for CEDIA. I know they are working on one of their upcoming tech and business summits. Hank, is it out in Cali? Is that right? Or am I?
Yeah, their first one's out in SoCal
Okay.
that they're going to do it at. I was talking to Mitch at CEDIA about it, and yeah, they're going to have a panel out there on this.
So great opportunity. You talk about the manufacturers wanting to educate. There's probably no better testament to that than them going to an event like that and sitting on a panel to talk about this. So there's that. But the message, and this is kind of to all of you, right? What would you advice, whether it's to the integrator or to the manufacturer, like how do we start to create clarity? Because I know you can't, and the reason I bring up the sodas is because you can't go to, Coke and tell them to start marketing their Sprite like Sierra Mist or whatever. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to change how they go about talking about their technology and what's good, and we're not going to be able to condense this alphabet soup into something different. So what can we do? How can we, what's the message to the manufacturer or the channel to help create clarity and make sense of, the kind of the current state of things? Who wants to tackle that one first?
Who's jumping out?
Yeah.
I'll jump out and say, at the end of the day, televisions have become easier to buy but harder to choose. That's exactly where the professional integrator provides value by simplifying the decision and delivering the best experience to the homeowner. What they need to do is become an evangelist of asking the right questions, right? Again, it's not about taking all that inertia in the head to confuse, but to ask the right questions, which will build credibility with that customer, to lead them to make the right decision based on us being professionals versus not knowing what to do or just walking in and say, that's the biggest one, I'll take it, right? So, that's what I would offer up. The manufacturer's doing a heck of a job of educating, as Jeff said, right? They're out there, unlimited opportunities to learn. Become an evangelist of that And selling more panels and better quality panels will lead to even better things throughout the house.
Yep, I agree, Chris, and I would say I think manufacturers are doing a better job at education. They continue to embrace that, continue to push that, not necessarily their spin or their marketing, but just educating everybody as a whole. I've talked to a number of manufacturers who lament a little bit that, they're not at the forefront anymore. Integrators are looking at lighting and shading and leading with some of those technologies. I would say from my seat, embrace that, right? Because that is a going forward trend for the whole industry, and embrace that and talk about lighting and shades and how those types of things play into panels and the new technology, and something they may be doing to the TV to make it not glare, or those types of things. And from the integration community, just embrace the education, lean in hard on it, whether it's what we're doing here with Connected Design. Thank you again, Rob, or CEDIA, or the vendors, or any of those. Just lean in hard on it and continue to drive the technology, and I think it's a good message and not the price.
Awesome. And Jeff, I think that gives you the last word.
Can I just say ditto? No.
That word, that is the last word. That would be the last word.
You've heard me say that. I say this all the time. I think marketing is, if done right, is the second most powerful thing on the planet Earth, next to gravity. And I think that right now the cookie cutter stickers on boxes, the signage that's put out there, the slowly unfurling petals of flowers on screens that are moving at 1 frame a second to look like this TV is the most amazing thing in the world. I think we've hit the pinnacle max of color space, resolution, and refresh. And the manufacturers that are out there, especially the big ones, they need to race to the next biggest thing, which is, I think we brought up briefly, video walls. And they need to come out with beautiful video walls at effective prices for the mass consumer. And I think they're going to see their revenues hit the caps that they did in their highest in the past. So that's the only recommendation I'd recommend.
Good statement. I like that one.
Love it. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, well said.
Hank, I know you have a mic over there that's worthy of dropping, so I was going to say that you could do it now. Boom! There we go.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
That was it. Mic drop.
Mic drop. Good job.
No, this was, gentlemen, a fantastic conversation. One, I know we're only scratching the surface. This is a great opportunity. I think sets the stage for future Connected Design Roundtables. So thank you for that. I appreciate your participation, and then to everyone watching, whether you were here with us live or after the fact, I appreciate you engaging with us. Look forward to more of these for sure. Nothing. Y'all did well, so y'all open invites back. So we appreciate that, and
thanks, Rob.
Look forward.
Look at yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Good job, Rob.
This was a lot of fun. So,
Appreciate it, Rob.
to kind of wrap it up, obviously be sure to if you registered for this, where to find, the latest updates on Connected Design. So head to connecteddesign.tech. Make sure you're subscribed and all that good stuff. Get latest news from us and future invites to roundtables like this. But for now, this was a lot of fun, and like I said, look forward to the next one.